Welcome to Just Hair Me Out, a podcast about love, life, and hair. I'm Barbara. I've spent over 38,000 hours coloring hair.
Hi, I'm Demetra, and I've spent over 1,000 weeks with scissors in my hands.
With 50 clients a week in our chairs and 22 years on our feet, doing hair is not our hobby, it's our hustle. We've navigated salon politics and then opened salon suites of our own in 2020. We choose dogs over kids, skinny marks over beer, and we've only fired 3 clients each. Welcome back to Just Hair Me Out. Today we have a big treat. We have Ashley on as a guest, and she is an expert in hair extensions. Hey.
Hi. Hey, girl. Hey, what's up?
And I just got extensions.
Yay.
If anyone is watching through YouTube, if you're just audio, I have these long, beautiful extensions in, and I've never had them before in my life. I've always wanted super long hair, and now I have it, and it's pretty exciting. So, Ashley, you do only extensions, correct?
That's correct. Only extensions.
Now, and what do you call yourself? Are you an extensions specialist?
I go with specialist instead of master because I feel like we always have something new to learn. So I don't want to really master it. I just want to specialize in it.
Gotcha. I call myself a master.
Well, maybe you do actually know a lot. I mean, You did my color and I'm in love. So.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ashley moved in to the salon suites where I work. And so that's how I met her. And she knows so much about hair extensions. And this is like one part of hair that I really don't know that much about. So I've always watched people do them, but there's the salons I've worked in, they've usually had like one person who can do extensions, and they also are a regular stylist. But I think it's really cool, especially given how much information and different types there are, to have somebody who knows all about it, such as Ashley. So tell us, how long have you been doing hair? How long have you been doing extensions?
Oh, boy. Well, I started doing hair when I was 3 years old. My mother she's deceased now, so she was a hairdresser. So I grew up watching her when I was a little girl. I was 3 years old, watched my mom do French braid on someone, and I just copied what she did on my Barbie. And when I showed her, she flipped out. It was almost as if I had solved like a really tough equation at that age or something. And because of that encouragement, I kept braiding. So my love for hair started with Barbie and braiding. And I started braiding everybody's hair in school. By the time I got to school, I remember in 2nd grade looking at everyone's hair and trying to figure out how to fix their hair. Boys with messy hair that needed a haircut, girls whose hair was a little frizzy or uneven. I was just daydreaming about hair since 2nd grade. And then I started gaining a clientele around 3rd, 4th grade when girls wanted their hair done for picture day. So my mom used to get calls to the house asking if I would be on the bus that morning to do their hair. And I would charge like $2 a braid. By the time I was 11, my mom started taking me into the salon, and the people there would set me up with a little mannequin. There was this really great Italian man named Donato who taught me how to do a French twist and other updos. And I would watch him do men's cuts. So I started learning how to cut like an old Italian man, like the scissor over comb, the old school barbering. And then by the time I got to high school, at about age 14, all my guy friends trusted me to actually cut their hair. So I started cutting men's hair at 14. And my girlfriends, I started doing hair extensions on. So because of my braiding skills, I was able to do cornrows and braid weft onto their hair. I also assisted my mom with color and color correction. So she started teaching me all about color theory. And I started doing highlights and lowlights, and I did all the updos for proms, and I worked at a record store, and all the girls wanted funky colored hair. So I started doing everyone's hair pretty much. And by the time I got to my late teens, early 20s, I started working more with textured hair. I have very tight curly hair, and I just loved working with curly hair. So I started doing micro braids, more wefts, and full weaves where you braid the whole head and you sew on a whole head of hair with the weft with a little bit of a leave out, sometimes with no leave out. I finally went to beauty school in my early 20s, and I wound up dropping out. I had to take care of my grandma when she was really sick, and went back at about 24. And hair was always my fun job, a way that I could hang out with friends. But I didn't take it seriously, like as a real full-time job. It wasn't until I was about 26 that I started doing it full-time. And that was probably the best thing that I ever did. And that was when I started doing hair extensions, all methods, full-time. And that was kind of cool.
No, and at this point, you're also teaching extensions, correct?
I am, yes. I go to a beauty school called John Amico, and I go there every couple months, and I teach them about hair extensions, about life in the salon. I've never worked for a full-service salon, but I grew up in a full-service salon atmosphere, but I never had that, aside from my mom, I never had that mentor for hair extensions per se, but my mom was really good to kind of fill in a lot of the gaps. So,
now, first things first,
yes.
something that I wanted to know are what are the different types of hair extensions?
Okay, so there are four main types of hair extensions that we use mostly here in the United States, which is the weave, right? There, which is also known as a sew-in. Back in the day, people, instead of braiding and sewing the hair on, they used to do something called a quick weave, where you'd have weave glue and you would glue tracks into the hair. You could technically braid your whole head and put on like a protective cap and glue the hair on that way, or you could glue it in between your natural hair, so your hair was either left out or not left out. It just depended on what you were going for. That can be damaging on the wrong type of hair, and if you leave it in too long. And then there's something called eye-tips, which is individual strands, but with a bead that secures the strand to your hair. And then there's something called tape-ins. Tape-ins are basically 1.25 inch size wefts that your hair is sandwiched in between it. And then there is fusion, which goes by a bunch of other terms based on the brand. But fusion is the technical term. It's also known as Keralink or K-tips. The bond is made out of keratin, which is what our hair is made up of. So it reacts like your natural hair. But there are other methods or other offshoots of each one, and they're coming up with new things all the time. But those are the four main ones.
Awesome. So I, after talking to you before, I was kind of like writing them out and then looking at in the sense of hair color, like how do they match up as far as temporary, semi-permanent, and permanent?
So temporary would definitely be anything with a weft that is should be removed and moved up about every 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the way that it has been installed. If it's braided and sewn on, I wouldn't keep it in for more than 6 weeks. If it is secured with just a bead, you can leave it in for between 6 and 8.
6 and 8 weeks?
6 and 8 weeks, yes.
Yeah.
But it really depends on how fast your hair grows, and hair extensions do make your hair grow faster. So people want to keep them in much longer, but that is not a good thing. So which means it could start falling out if you don't maintain it within the time that it needs to be maintained, and that the longer period of time that you wear hair extensions, like years, that time starts to dwindle. Something like tape-ins, that's also temporary, but it's a little bit more secure. But tape-ins also have to be removed and moved up every 6 to 8 weeks. I've been wearing hair extensions for well over 10 years, and I grow about 1 full inch a month, which means I have to move mine up every 4 weeks. So, but for someone who just started out wearing hair extensions, they can make it 6 to 8 weeks. But if they have very low density, very fine, thin hair, then they're about the 4 week mark. If you leave them in past the time that you should, then they'll start falling out and they could either slip out or break off, which we don't want. So,
Yeah.
and then there's the eye tips, which are also very temporary. Temporary just means that they're probably going to come out on their own if you don't have them moved up. That hair is usually reusable. The hair that's more permanent than the others is definitely the fusion. Fusion can last anywhere from, I'd say, 3 to 6 months. On average, I'm a 3-monther because I have 3 inches at 3 months. Most people on average are about 4 months. That method, it's in there, like it's in your hair. If you had someone properly install the K-tips, or you can brush right over the bonds, it's not going to pull anything out. If for some reason you start losing a strand here or there, it's most likely because of the shedding time period. We shed about 100 hairs a day on average. So the longer period of time that you have them in, the extensions are going to grow with your hair. So the main thing we want to do as an extension technician is to match density to density. You don't want to have anything too heavy attached to something that can't hold it. So when the hair starts to grow, some of the hair that it's attached to will start to shed over time. And that means it's going to be attached to less hair. So towards the 3 to 4 month mark, you might have 1 or 2 strands fall out. And they are grown out, so they do need to be properly removed and then new hair put in. Fusion typically is not reusable.
Gotcha. So, and just to clarify, when I say like temporary and permanent, I mean the same way as I do hair color. Like when it's permanent, it's like it's really in there and it's not going to come out till it's taken out. And,
Okay.
I just wanted to say this for our audience. Clearly, your hair is going to grow.
Yes.
So I've actually, like I want to laugh about it, but it's kind of rude. Like some people, if you don't know hair, I've had people that I've colored their hair and they came back in a month and said, look, it washed off the first half inch. Well, no, it's just new hair. So it's not going to, permanent hair color doesn't change how it grows out of your head. Same thing with extensions, like, and super temporary, which we're not even bringing up really, are like clip-ins, right?
Oh, yes.
That people, you take them off at night.
Yes.
So, or they're for certain occasions, what have you. So just to clarify also, the only kind of extensions that are professionally done that someone like Ashley would do are definitely human hair.
100%, yes. Only human hair.
So, there are such things. If something is synthetic hair, it's what a layperson would describe as like a Halloween wig, where it's made out of plastic, meant to look like hair, but it's very obvious that it's not real.
Yes.
Yes, you
Yeah.
agree?
I agree, big time.
So, and tell us about hair and where they get the hair, where it comes from, what's the best types.
Sure. So when I do a consultation with a client, I look at their density and their texture. Where hair is sourced from is going to tell you what type of hair texture you're going to have. Most of the world's hair comes from India. They have pretty fine to medium strands of hair, but they have a body wave to their hair, which majority of people around the world have a body wave. But there are people who have stick straight hair as well. So if somebody has very fine to medium in density strands, if it has a little bit of a wave to it, I will use hair from India for them. For people who have very straight hair, I'll usually source hair from companies that get their hair from Vietnam or from Indonesia. There are also some very tight curly textures out there. Those are a little bit harder to find. We can perm hair to have hair that curly, but most of the world's hair comes from Asia.
And what is, I kept reading when I was trying to do some recon research, so I wouldn't sound too silly talking to the master, I mean specialist.
Specialist. Thank you. Thank you.
Remy hair, Remy. I thought that was a
Yes.
brand at first, but tell me Remy hair.
Yeah, Remy's a term that's been around for so long, and honestly, a lot of people I don't think even really understands what that means, other than the fact that the cuticles are 100% intact. But what does that really actually mean? Our strands have a cuticle. The cuticle is something inside the individual strand that keeps our hair from turning into a rat's nest. And from a color standpoint, that's usually where the color gets inserted into. Is that?
Yeah, that's cuticle is, you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
So it's basically if you were to like zoom in or Google on your phone like 10 times magnified piece of hair, it's gonna look like kind of like a long snake with scales that like lay down. And so when you color hair, especially permanent color, you have to use a chemical that like opens all of those and the color goes in.
Okay.
Otherwise it will slowly wash off. So that is huge. I mean, when I read about that and you told me about some of it,
Yeah.
like the cuticle is a huge deal. So I can't even believe they make human hair pieces
Yeah.
that maybe wouldn't have that intact.
So I learned what that actually meant a couple years ago, and I didn't understand that the hair from the scalp, when hair is sourced, they shave the head. The hair from the scalp is different than the hair at the very bottom. The hair at the bottom is usually, I call this North Pole, and this is South Pole. So usually when hair is sourced, you want to make sure you know where the top and the bottom are, because if you cross the streams, the North Pole and South Pole, it basically all needs to be going in the same direction, or else it will be a rat's nest. Because if you take the hair, the really old hair that has like split ends, and you put that up at the top, when you're when they're making it in the factory, that hair will be a rat's nest. And usually companies, manufacturers like in China, it might say 100% human hair, which all hair is human, right, that they're sourcing. But if it's not facing in the same direction, it will be a rat's nest. But what they do in the manufacturers in China is they will coat it in silicone. That way they can just put all the hair in a big vat, clean it with the chemicals, strip it of color, and then put their dyes into it. And then they just, once it's dry and they're actually creating the fusion or the weft or the eye tips or the tapes, they don't know what's the top and the bottom, what was North Pole or what was South Pole. But because they coat it in silicone, you can't tell. It feels really nice and silky. But then after you wash it a couple times, that wears off, and then your hair turns into a rat's nest. So it's important for your package, if you purchase it at a store, for it to say 100% human hair and Remy. If it just says human hair, that means it's mixed in with something. And usually that's from an animal called the yak up in the mountains of China, which the hair looks, their fur looks like hair. So a lot of these cheaper companies can get away with things. If your hair is cheap, it's usually not safe to wear semi-permanently. Maybe for clip-ins, but not something that's been actually attached to your hair, because it will turn into a rat's nest.
Also, just something that came to mind, I was thinking about keratin treatments, because that's something I do a lot.
Yes.
And I was really interested to know, like, how do they make like liquid keratin? Because that's what you're putting in your hair.
Yeah.
And so the company I use, I like that they use, like, it's very humane. Like, they shear sheep and like break down that hair. And I believe that in some of these countries where they're getting like long hair, human hair that's being donated, that in places like India or is it Buddhist religions where
it's actually
some people like donate their hair, like it's very important to them to do, so they're happy to do it. It's not like, oh my God, I need to like feed my family, and we're all like, oh God, what are we doing? Yeah,
it's mostly a part of the Hindu religion, where in India they little girls, they don't cut their hair until they're like 13. So their hair grows very long. and then they go into the temple and shave their hair, and that's considered their entryway into womanhood. They get rid of the old and then bring in the new, which is their womanhood. And then that hair gets sold to they do make money off of it, the temples,
Yeah.
and then they'll sell it to the manufacturers, and then the manufacturers will take the hair and process it.
It's kind of nice to know that it's a win-win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I only use ethically sourced, because
Yeah.
there's some companies that maybe don't ethically source their hair.
Also, can no one write in and ask me why I think that there's a lot of Buddhists in India?
Well, there are some, there are some. Yes.
I was thinking
Yes.
more Asia.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So another thing that is like super important to me that I was like really impressed with Ashley is that, paramount in anybody's hair extension journey is making sure that the hair isn't compromised. Yes.
Correct. Yes.
I think that hair extensions sometimes get a bad rap, like they're going to hurt your hair.
Yeah.
But it's really the wrong situations put together that create that. So can you talk to us about how to keep your hair really healthy, or what's involved in keeping it super healthy when you have extensions in?
Sure. Well, number one, we want to know what the correct method is for our hair. And there's usually a need client or a want client. So I kind of look at those things. But the number one thing is the method. There's tons of methods that are out there. The wrong method can damage your hair. If somebody has very fine, thin hair, putting something like a weft that's a little too heavy could cause something called tension alopecia, which basically means the hair is too heavy, and it could cause bald spots. Which the other thing that I look at is their texture. I have very curly hair, and trying to find curly haired extensions that match my texture that aren't permed is a little difficult. So I've started wearing just regular straight or wavy hair, which means I have to put a lot of heat on my natural hair. I recently had a keratin treatment with Barbara, and it's made my life so much easier with smoothing out my hair. It's less heat that I have to use on my hair, to be quite honest. But haircuts are paramount for hair extensions. You should have a haircut by your hair extension specialist before you put the extensions in, and you should also have a haircut after you have them taken out. Our hair really, where the extension attachment is, will not do any damage unless the person installing them hasn't been properly trained or hasn't spent enough time working on models getting their install perfected. That can cause damage. A lot of people, I find, use too much keratin with their fusion installs, which can be a little bit big and bulky, or they're not attaching the right ratio of natural hair and extension.
So you really need somebody who knows the whole range of possibilities and how to customize it to one person.
Yes.
And I'm somebody who, I was saying, I want to be able to put my hair in a ponytail. It doesn't have to be like totally sleek back, but I want to be able to wear it up. And she was saying the only thing that will do that well for me are the K-tips. And so that's what I have.
Yes.
So, and do you want to show what some bonds look like?
Yes. So keratin fusion is individual strands here. So this is one row here. So this fills in her front, and this is the brand Bellamy. Bellamy has some really beautiful rooted tones. So she wanted to have a little bit of lightness, and that way we have, basically as this starts to grow out, you won't see it. As we're looking up here, this is about almost a week, not even, that you've had fresh install. But fusion goes up, down, side to side, and these are going to grow. So eventually the bonds are up here, they will get down here. But when she goes to put her hair up into a ponytail, you don't see anything. So it's key to when you're doing an install to make sure that there's enough hair to cover everything.
Yeah.
So when I do an install, I do a series of ponytail checks so that there is enough hair to cover it. But yeah, I love fusion.
You know what I didn't tell you?
Yeah.
One funny situation, okay, again, not so funny, is when I worked at a salon in the city, there was a family that lived in the building, and they had a daughter she was in her 20s, and she was somebody who had trichotillomania. So, which, if you don't know, is constantly kind of pulling on, tugging, pulling out your hair, technically.
Yes.
And it's like an anxiety thing that's compulsive, and, it can be tricky because it's like an anxiety disorder type thing. But it's, I think, a lot more common than people think. I mean,
Very.
some people pull on their eyebrows or eyelashes.
Yeah.
Anyway, this girl would really pull out a lot of her own hair.
Yeah.
And then, so it got to the point where she would come in and get extensions put in just so she could pull them out.
Oh, just so she could pull them out.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it worked for her.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, because, well, she would come in frequently to have things filled in. Fortunately, money was not an object.
Okay.
But I just thought that was kind of genius.
Well, my clients come in who have that, they put them in so they stop. It helps them stop pulling.
Oh.
And I have some clients where they're like, they stop doing hair extensions, but doing the hair extensions for about a year around, usually people have a sweet spot where they like to pull from a certain area.
Oh.
They don't always pull from different areas. It's always one spot. So what we'll do is we'll put extensions around that spot, and it helps them stop pulling. And then usually after about a year of doing that, they stop pulling altogether.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Yeah. So, and another thing, when I went to Ashley and said, I want extensions, do it right now. And I was thinking, like, I want my Rapunzel hair.
Yes.
My hair just naturally will not be thick and long. It'll be like stringy and long because it is just so fine and straight, and it doesn't even like hardly hold curl. Long story short, I didn't even realize it was an option to, I mean, it's silly not to think it's an option, to get extensions just for fullness, not for length.
Yes. I have a lot of clients who do that.
Yeah.
A little goes a long way. That's my motto. You don't need to do length if you don't want to. You can add just a little bit of fullness.
So as far as a lot of people are experiencing issues with hair thinning or hair loss, and of course, you have to have some hair to attach extensions to. Yes. At what point would you say someone needs like a wig or a hairpiece or a topper? And do you also do those?
I don't do toppers, but I help direct people where to purchase them.
Okay.
And then I offer the service where they can bring them in, and I will shape them to their natural hair. A lot of wigs too also need to be shaped. It's kind of like a garment that needs to be tailored to your body. Wigs, toppers usually have more than enough hair, and it doesn't look very natural because it's like so much hair.
So if a woman is having like some baldness on top,
yes,
or just going in like extremely fine where you can't fake it with extensions, can you explain what a topper is?
So a topper is basically like a clip-in, but for the top, clip-ins under. So usually with hair extensions, everything is installed underneath what we would call the hood, right? So there needs to be hair to cover the extensions. But a topper is basically like a round piece, and there's all different shapes, and they are totally customizable as well, depending on the company that you work with, for all different lengths, or I don't know what you'd call that.
Like a shape of where the hair's coming out.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So basically there would be a couple clips to make things look more natural. You do want to leave some hair out. So there's usually a clip here and then on the side, and then maybe about 5 clips in total. Yeah. And that's clipped on.
But you'd love it if you have enough hair to have some hairline that's your natural?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you do. If you don't, that's okay. What makes things look very natural is if you have bangs cut into them, or if you always had bangs, then it just kind of
Yeah.
will look natural. There's also something from a company called Hair Dreams called Volume Plus. I used to do them where I used to work. I don't anymore, but it's like a topper, but instead of using clips, there's uh, um, like a round adhesive thing connected to it, and your natural hair gets fused onto it, and then your whatever hair on the top that you have actually gets crocheted through these little holes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's called the Microline Volume Plus. I think my friend Marlene in Chicago still does them, Emaneer hair extensions. She does them. So for people really suffering that want something with more of an attachment, as opposed to clipping things on and off every day, that's a good solution. They're very pricey, but they are worth it depending on how much loss you have.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Now, and can I ask you, as a non-hair cutting person, do you have to use different shears for a wig or extensions?
no, so I do cut hair. I just don't cut hair for people that don't wear hair extensions. But my clients who are able to stop wearing hair extensions, I'll keep them on and just cut their hair because I am really big on haircuts. A big majority of my clients that actually need hair extensions are women who just haven't had haircuts for years. And once the hair starts to split and break off, it keeps traveling and traveling. So a lot of clients say, my hair, it just, it's not growing past my shoulders. And I tell them, look, you've got 2 inches of outgrowth. Your hair is growing, but it's breaking. So if you don't kind of nip the split ends in the butt, it's going to keep growing higher and higher. So I have a lot of clients who come in with like 4 to 8 inches of like thin hair. And then basically what I do is I use my regular shears. You can use a razor to cut hair extensions too, but I like to use my shears. And I'll cut people's hair before I put extensions in. They wear their fusion or tapes, and then we take them out, cut their hair, and then their hair actually does grow past their shoulders, and they're amazed that their hair grew past their shoulders. And I'm like, it's literally just because we're cutting your hair,
Yeah.
And then they start to reduce the amount of hair that they're wearing because their hair gets longer and thicker at the bottom. So haircuts are, I gotta tell you, that's very important.
Yeah.
So
When you told me you needed to trim my hair before I put them in, I was kind of like, gulp.
Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah.
But when you talk about the North Pole, South Pole,
yes,
this hair has seen some shit.
Your South Pole's been your South Pole's like no.
Am I one of those people who needed more haircuts?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
I haven't getting it cut enough.
So that, but also people who cut their own hair, which they can't actually pull the hair out in the direction and the degree that it needs to be pulled out in order to actually get a good cut. A lot of people who cut their own hair just cut the bottom, but I try to explain to clients the hair that this is higher up than what's down here. So this hair takes a lot longer to get down here. So if you're just cutting the bottoms, you're going to have a lot of split ends throughout here. And there are people who don't get their hair cut in between hair extensions, and they'll wear hair extensions for 2-3 years, and their hair just keeps breaking and breaking, getting shorter and shorter to the point of where their only thickness is like a pixie cut, and then they just have scraggly ends. And I force people to get haircuts. I won't work with people who won't let me cut their hair because I know what the future holds. And I've seen the future, and I try to help people not get to that point. I feel like I can see the past, present, and future when it comes to hair. Now,
do you generally have people come in for like maintenance appointments?
I do. So if it's a temporary method, they're coming in every 6 to 8 weeks, like clockwork. For fusion, I'll have people come in around the halfway point. And what I'll do, because we lose about 100 hairs a day, the fusion is only hanging on to maybe it's lost about a quarter of what it was attached to, and that hair kind of has nowhere to go, so it just kind of flails about. And usually that hair has a little white bulb, because when the hair is released from your scalp, it has a little white bulb attached to it. So if somebody has really dark hair, that might show up if they're not coloring their roots. And that hair is all different lengths. So I'll usually cut that out of the way. And then I also, if something looks like it's maybe not going to make it another couple months, I can rehab it, and put it in with more hair. But maintenance is good. And that's a good way for me to see how well you're brushing and separating and taking, care of your hair. Also, when hair extensions start to grow out, it loses a little bit of shape. So, and it could be almost 2 inches grown out by then, depending on how fast your hair grows. So your 18 inches is now 20 inches. And if you've been using heat repetitively, like myself, you're going to need a haircut, just to keep, because it is human hair, it is natural hair, and you need to keep that hair fresh too. So, so maintenance is great. Not everybody does it. But if you want to keep your hair in the best shape possible, maintenance is a good thing.
Excellent. Okay, so here's a question for you. What type of clients or situations are great candidates for hair extensions?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's a lot. Okay. So,
yeah.
Number one are definitely people who have not had haircuts. Their ends are thin, which in theory, the thinner the ends, the better it just blends into the extensions. The more blunt your hair is, the harder it is. So, if you're going for length, you need to mimic close to the amount of hair that's on your head. You never want to overload someone's head with too much hair. That's too heavy. So people that have very thin hair are actually pretty good candidates, but within reason. There's also clients who have fried their hair off with chemicals, whether that's a relaxer, a perm, or bleach. And those are usually people that are doing bleach at home, themselves, and they don't know how to properly mix things or leave them on. So when their hair was like this and then it breaks off up to here, it's really hard for them to live life like that. So what I can do is I'll trim their hair, right? Because when you have fried hair, it's dead, it's gone, it has to go. So I'll usually cut their hair, put the extensions in, and hair extensions will help your hair grow faster. And then usually by the time their hair is like, this long, by the time it gets down to here, they can stop wearing hair extensions if they want. So that's like a short-term hair extension wear. But there are people that also just want their hair a little bit thicker, who maybe lost their hair after having a baby or a bunch of babies. I know that kind of depletes women's hair, different health issues too, especially PCOS.
Well, there's a lot of situations, I think, where when I think of hair extensions, I always think it's like super fun and like long hair.
Yeah.
But then the more I've talked to you about the different types of extensions, there's a lot of situations where someone would be, it would really help them out to have extensions for like a certain period of months or like a year and a half, just to get you where you need to be to not wear them anymore.
That's true. I've always, since I was in second grade, liked to fix people's hair. So I find that doing hair extensions isn't so much as about enhancing your look, but there's a lot of women who go through a lot of things, and they might just need hair extensions to help their hair get in better shape. And they can do that while not having to go without hair. And then there's people who do wear them full time for the rest of their lives just because they love them. I'm one of those people that just loves hair extensions, and it is addicting, not gonna lie. All right.
I believe you told me that the temporary ones are gateway.
Yeah, so clip-ins and wefts are the gateway drug to hair extensions. And then you start to graduate. You kind of graduate to something like tape-ins, and then you get tired of tape-ins, and then you want something a little more flexible, and then you go to eye-tips, and then eye-tips are also very temporary, and then you graduate to fusion. And fusion is that one method that it's the more advanced method. And most people who go to fusion never stop wearing fusion.
So it turns out I'm hardcore.
I love it.
Yeah.
You're hardcore. You went straight to the hard stuff.
I did.
Yeah.
Don't mean to brag.
Yeah.
One thing that's like kind of confusing to me in thinking of like how a person is an extension specialist, like your consultations must be like really
Thorough.
and not very short.
No.
So I just wanted to point out to people that, because I was also trying to get Ashley to like commit to price ranges.
Yeah.
But as I understand this now, but I mean, there's just so many different types, and it depends on your hair. You really need someone who knows what they're talking about to tell you what you need, rather than you researching it and, trying to tell them what you think. So, and with that is also the cost. Like, it's very hard to even create a range for the price, right?
Yeah. I usually tell people when they call, how much is it? I say anywhere from $300 to $3,000, but it's a totally customized service.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and also the hair itself is quite expensive.
Yes.
And the longer it takes for you to put them in, it's like, I mean, do you do like 1 or 2 clients per day?
It depends on how much hair. If I have to do a removal, that could take an hour or 2, depending on how long they kept the extensions in for and how well they took care of them. So I have done 3 people in one day, and that's a good 12-hour day of constant standing and working. But there are some like Tuesday, I have a client. I'm doing a removal, which will take me about 2 hours. She keeps her fusion in for about 6 months. And then I do a bleach root touch-up on her and a toner. That takes me about another 2 hours. And then I have to do an install where we're adding tinsel to the fusion. So, which is really cool. She's doing 24-inch blonde fusion. And with the tinsel, it just looks like her hair is like shiny. Yeah, it looks really cool. So I'll be working on her for a solid 8 hours.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
Yeah.
Just maybe a bathroom break.
Yeah. Well, let's talk real quick, just as our audience is maybe people who are interested in hair and not professionals at it. What makes you want to not do someone's hair?
Good question. Good question. So if someone has very low density, meaning very thin hair, and coupled with the fact that their hair might be a little malnourished, because what you put into your body comes out through your hair. Your hair is made up of dead cells. So if somebody has a diet that's very poor, or is taking certain medication that changes the texture of their hair, I've seen some people where their hair feels like cotton. If you put any kind of weight on it, it's going to break off. So those are the clients I usually have to not work with. I'll recommend them to somebody who can help them either with like a topper. Even then it might be too much, but they should wear a wig. But also the clients who want me to put a method on their hair that they have no business wearing.
Because you see the future of those extensions, and they don't want to trust you.
Yes.
Also, I think we talked about this before. We were together for 4 hours while my extensions were being put in. But have you had to kind of stop doing someone's hair because they weren't doing the at-home maintenance that you're required to do?
Yes, because if they don't take good care of their hair, and 90% of my job, I swear, I feel like is mostly educating the client about their hair and how to take care of it. Because if they don't have hair for me to install it, then I can't do my job. So it's in my best interest and the client's best interest to take care of their hair. So if I feel like they're not taking good care of it, I'll usually tell them that they need to take a break and give their hair a little bit of a breather, basically not having any kind of weight on their hair. Or they need to switch methods, because some people just are not good at brushing. And if you don't brush, you're going to end up with matted dreadlocks, everything above the bond. And really that's what causes a lot of damage. I fix a lot of work from other stylists' work. People come into me because they want to keep wearing hair extensions, but they don't know what they're doing wrong. And that's usually just because the stylist either doesn't have enough time behind the chair doing hair extensions, or they don't wear them themselves. I would never trust a stylist if they don't wear hair extensions,
Mhm.
honestly. If the person installing your hair doesn't wear hair extensions, run, because they don't know. They might learn how to maintain them from the course that they took or from other clients, what they've done. But really, if they themselves are not in the thick of it, it's going to be really hard for them to teach someone how to maintain things properly.
That was a good pun.
So
In the thick of it.
In the thick of it. Yes. Hey, that was
Hey, girl.
no pun intended, literally. So thank you.
So Ashley was telling me, explaining to me, because
Yeah.
I need education on how to take care of these bad girls,
I call them bad boys.
that it's like really important to brush through the bonds,
Right over the bonds.
which
Yes.
sounds really weird to me. I'm like,
Yes.
what am I supposed
Yeah.
to do? Anyway, so I'm learning, but that is like huge that you
Yeah.
have to do that.
Yes.
Otherwise your own hair is going to get damaged. Oh, also in the same vein of like firing clients,
Oh yeah,
and
which I've done more
Yes.
times than I can count, honestly.
we want to talk about real quick. I
Yeah.
just want to bring this up because Demetra and I have talked about how and why people get really upset about their own cancellation policies,
Yeah.
and clients maybe sometimes don't understand. So Demetra and I have gone like down the rabbit hole and try to explain exactly why we have these 24-hour cancellation policies. But I just wanted to point out, for somebody who has appointment times where they
Mhm.
do 1 to 2 people a day,
Yeah.
if those people cancel,
Yeah.
that day is like done.
Yep.
Gone.
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
So I just wanted to say, if you are getting extensions, if you see a lot of information about a lot of commitment and a lot of money going
Mhm.
into if you cancel,
Yeah.
it really is just the reason why like people have to protect themselves and their business.
Yes. If we don't work, we don't eat. We can't pay our bills. So
Yeah.
So it really does affect us.
Yeah. I know that stuff comes up in life, but if you
Yes.
something comes up in your life and you end up losing a few $100s or more,
Yeah.
it is just life.
It's true.
Yeah. So so that is very normal. I would say
Yes.
it's a little shocking if someone doesn't have a cancellation policy.
Yeah.
And then going back to because if you live anywhere near Highland Park, Illinois, you really want to go see Ashley. But if you are anywhere in the United States or the world,
Yeah.
when you go talk to a hair extension specialist and you're kind of choosing, because a consultation to me is kind of a job interview on both sides.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's like, as a client, you want to be sure that you feel comfortable and trust that person. And also that the person doing the service feels like you're going to listen to them, that you will comply with what you need to do.
Yes.
So I was going to ask you, Ashley, how do you know if a stylist is trained properly to hire them to do your extensions?
That's such a great question.
And first of all,
Yeah.
they're going to tell you they have to cut your hair, right?
Yes, they should. They should, because if they don't, they're most likely just want to keep you stuck wearing hair extensions for the rest of your life, and then you become a need client, not a want client. So, because of the hair that breaks, but a lot of clients don't understand how hair splits and breaks off and gets thinner. But I've always said that in order to do hair extensions, and especially to specialize in them, you have to be compassionate. Women, especially women, because there are men. I do have a few male clients here and there, but mostly women dealing with hair loss, whether that's from chemical damage or from not getting haircuts and they just don't know it's from that, or just genetically hair thinning. There's literally thousands of reasons for hair loss that are out there, but you want to go to somebody who's compassionate, and that you're going to kind of see with how well they listen to you.
So Ashley, what do you charge for a consultation?
So I charge $50 for a consultation. It typically takes about 30 minutes. But if it's a client that needs a little more time, I'll give them about an hour to kind of go over the different methods and explain to them, especially if they have more than one option. Some people can wear more than one method. So we then start to talk about lifestyle, because your lifestyle means you might not be able to come in every 6 to 8 weeks to have things moved up, or if you like to work out a lot, one method might be better than the other.
Are there sometimes people where you would use one method over another because it might be more cost effective? Or
Yeah,
are they all
yes.
a little bit comparable given a certain situation?
Yeah, so I like to tell people that the reusable methods, you actually spend more in a year reusing hair than if you were to just do fusion maybe 2 or 3 times a year, because you're still going to need new hair probably every 6 months. There are people who try to reuse the hair that they have for longer than 6 months, but honestly, if you are using so much heat on your head or on your hair, that is going to fry the hair, and it's going to need to be cut, and the hair does start to thin out. So after 6 months, the hair doesn't feel good or look good, which means you then have to use more heat on your natural hair to make it look good as well. So you're still spending the initial cost and install every 6 months, but every 6 to 8 weeks you have to come in and pay hourly. I charge hourly to move things up. And yeah, you end up spending about $1,500 to $2,000 more a year reusing hair than if you were to just do fusion.
Yes, the type I have is the fusion.
Yes.
And Ashley explained to me when these are done and they come out, they are done.
They're put in the garbage.
Yeah.
Yes. They're usually a little over it's time. Yeah.
They live their life.
Yes.
Their whole life.
Yeah, they're ready to go.
So back to how you choose somebody. So you want someone that will do a very thorough consultation.
Yes.
Someone that wants to cut your hair.
Yes. And has been certified. So that's actually very important. Yes.
And as you said before, to do somebody that wears extensions, or they'll tell you, oh, I've tried all of them and I wear this and that and whatever.
Yes, big time. I have a few certifications, and the big one is Great Lengths. Great Lengths is probably one of the most thorough courses that's out there. It's usually 2 or 3 days, and that's long. Other companies will go over maybe 4 different methods, and it's like an 8-hour day. So they kind of cram, like Bellamy, they cram all 4 methods in one day. But it's nice because then you get certified in all 4 methods and you learn the basics. But really, I want to know how many people you've actually worked on for each method. Because if you were certified in a Weft or certified in Fusion, but you've only worked on 1 or 2 people your whole life, that you maybe don't want to go to that person. You kind of want somebody who's put more hours in on that type of method. So, but keep an open mind too. That's important. But color matching as well. I usually will color match during the appointment, and that's kind of part of the magic, matching the hair extensions to your natural hair. That's really a big part of the consultation too.
Because you have tons and tons of samples of hair to see what colors. Because I'm somebody who wanted to add some dimensional color without coloring my own hair. So that's what Ashley was able to do for me.
Yes.
Yeah. And just in case anyone's wondering, it is really, really important to get the extensions in the right color, because I would say all of them, like, it's a little bit of a gamble coloring them. And so I've always known it is like, you really have to do like test strands. You need extra hair to just try certain colors on. It is a very, very dicey thing. Like, I would never use bleach to try to highlight extensions.
Never. No,
it
don't
is
do it.
Because of how they're prepared. It is just a no.
Yeah.
And like, so I believe Ashley told me I could color these darker if I want, but definitely, you don't want to be thinking, oh, it's close, I can tweak it. No, you want it.
True.
You want it how it is.
Yes, absolutely. You can deposit, you just can't lift.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people. So unless it's virgin hair, if it's virgin curly hair, then you can lift it.
Yeah.
But as we know, with curly hair, really tight curly hair, once you start to lift it or lighten it, it loses its curl.
Yeah.
So
the texture changes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very dicey. Personally, I never do that. because also this hair is so expensive.
Yeah.
And like if it just doesn't work right, or it turns like pink,
Yep.
and you're a weirdo who doesn't like pink hair,
Yeah.
then
You're
or
out
you're
that,
not a weirdo who wants their hair pink.
yeah. You're out that
I do.
hair.
Okay, real quick, I just wanted to say that when I heard of things like hand tied,
Oh yeah.
I think of like rugs, first of all. Second of all, this annoys me. There's different types of the hair. So
Yes.
like wefts are like long, thin pieces
Yes.
where the hair is draped. It's hard to explain without showing.
Yes.
We're gonna do a video later
Yeah.
to show all the different types. And I'm hoping to get a little bit of footage of Ashley putting them in.
Yeah.
Those different types.
Yeah.
But they call these hand tied.
Yes.
And then they say tape in, sew in, blah blah blah, hand tied.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're hand tying them into someone's hair.
No.
And then I found out
Yeah.
the trickery these people are using.
Yeah.
That means how they're prepared.
Yes.
Okay.
There's machine weft,
Yeah.
and that's how the hair is sewn onto the track.
Yeah.
And then there's hand tied, which means it's basically like handmade. So hair extensions, wigs, all of those things to me are like a garment. So a weft is you're either going to use a sewing machine to make the weft, or you're going to actually sew it on the track by hand, which means it's much lighter and more delicate. And depending on the brand, can shed a little bit more than something that's machine tied. Most people who wear wefts like to double up, triple up, sometimes even quadruple up. And that's heavy. That's not good, right? So for people who have very, very fine hair, but just want to wear like one little weft, a hand-tied weft is actually a really good thing because it's very dainty. And I like those. It really depends on the person.
So that's what people mean when they're like, your tracks are showing?
Your tracks are showing, yep.
Yeah, yep. Because you don't want to be able to see where things are attached, right?
Yes. And that's why the fusion, it's so discreet. It's very small, and you can do French pigtail braids with it. You can pull your hair back. I use those 1980s like clip comb things.
Oh yeah.
Where I will literally, so like when when my fusion has grown out about an inch, I literally will take my hair and go like this, and no one knows I'm wearing hair extensions. I have some hair extensions, and now I'm actually wearing tape-ins, and I can't style my hair the same way that barber can because of them, because they can only go up and down.
Right.
So if you want to check it out.
Oh yeah.
So let's see here. Got one here. This is one sandwich. So, and we call it a sandwich because there's a top piece and a bottom piece, and my hair is literally sandwiched in between.
So you have just a real thin section in between the two pieces.
Yep. And you don't want to put too much hair in there, and you don't want to put too little. So that's where the balance comes in, because if it's too little, this might be too heavy for some densities. So
now also, like, I didn't know that you call this the hood.
The hood, yes. Yeah.
Now, is that like a term that comes from like, let's pop the hood and see what's under?
Let's see what's under the hood. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's see what's under the hood. So
yeah. Means different things in different circles.
Yes, it does.
Okay. So can you explain to us, and I'm going to listen carefully again to care for my own hair.
Okay.
Shampooing, sleeping. How do I take care of my hair?
Yes. Okay. So anything with a keratin bond, you really want to use sulfate-free shampoo, because the keratin, when our hair gets wet, it opens up a little bit, it swells. So if you have a bead crushing your hair, the way I explain it is, when your hair gets wet, the bead is still crushing your hair, even if it's lined with silicone. In fact, that probably is squeezing it even tighter. It can snap and break under that pressure of the bead. So you have to have really big strands to, withstand a bead. Beads, you can use any type of shampoo as long as it's professional. But with keratin, because that's what your hair is made up of, the bond will also open up. So if you get something in there that has too much sulfates, and there's many different types of sulfates. So I always tell clients, make sure it actually states sulfate free on the packaging, because what gets in there could cause it to slip out. Stay away from drugstore products. You don't want to spend $1,000 on your new hair and then go home and use Garnier or, something that's not professional. Conditioner is another thing, especially with the keratin. So you really can only condition from the mid shaft down. So what I tell people to do is in the shower, after you've shampooed your hair, which you can shampoo as normal, even with the tapes. A lot of people are kind of like, how do you shampoo? And I actually started going section by section. So like I can actually get in there and I'll actually scrub, because you really want to get in there. You actually need your scalp to get clean. If you don't, the oil and skin will start to build up, and that's not good for your scalp. I wash my hair maybe once or twice a week. So when I do wash my hair, I will shampoo it at least 3 times. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the first shampoo, it just kind of loosens things up. Second shampoo gets things clean. Third shampoo is what actually gets it all out, especially if you've been using a lot of dry shampoo and oils on your ends or some type of anti-frizz cream.
She was explaining to me that your extensions are human hair,
Yes.
but because they're not connected to your scalp, they don't get the natural oils.
No.
So you have to put conditioner, hair oils.
Yes.
The right types of oils, but hydrate them.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then is it important for everybody or just people like me to like braid it or put it up or something when you're sleeping?
Yeah. So it's important for everybody. So at night, you do want to have a low ponytail. When we sleep, we toss and turn. So it's really important to keep your extensions in the direction that they're growing, which is down. Sometimes people will sleep with their hair up high. With fusion, you wear them for a much longer period of time. So if you have a lot of shed hair, that can cause more matting if you're not properly brushing it. So if you wear it up, that means it's more exposed. But I do highly recommend using a satin or silk pillowcase or wearing an actual like bonnet. That'll help protect your hair. But it is good to do a low ponytail or a braid. That way things kind of stay put. So
Sounds good.
yeah.
Also, I was just thinking of something that you were telling me about the different brands of hair.
Yes.
And you were using an analogy of the different types of like fancy cars, which is like over my head, by the way.
Yeah.
None of it made sense to me. But can you tell me why? I know a lot of brands and I've heard a lot of brands. I know that Great Lengths is like really popular. So I assume they're really good, but also have good marketing.
Yes.
And can you explain to me why their hair legitimately is more expensive than other hair?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when the hair gets processed in the factory that cleans it, and this is something that you being a colorist, I think would understand because you're working with chemicals.
Yeah.
The more nutritious the hair means the better it's going to be able to take the chemical process. So if you're sourcing hair from a country that has poor nutrition, that means when you go to process the hair with chemicals, it's not going to feel as good. Whereas if you have a company or if you're sourcing hair from a more affluent area that has better nutrition, you can put chemicals into the hair and it's going to withstand those chemicals. But also, Great Lengths, the chemicals that they use are different than all of the chemicals that other companies use. So their chemicals are so gentle on top of the fact that the hair is nutritious. It's so gentle that you could actually put it in your mouth. Like it's almost that safe, which I know you probably wouldn't put hair dye in your mouth, right? Or hair color. Like it
doesn't taste good.
Yeah. Have you? So
nasty.
So Great Lengths is not only the highest quality hair that you can get from where it's sourced, but also it's processed gently. The other thing is most brands.
Do you want to show with mine?
Yeah. So Barbara has 18 inches. Now this has multiple lengths throughout. So, it probably has like 12 inches. So there's hair. I mean, we did cut into it too, but when you get the hair, you don't really have to cut into it much. I call it like kind of pre-cut or naturally layered. So the hair has multiple different lengths. But when you buy Great Lengths hair, 18 inches is literally from the bond all the way to the tip. So it almost kind of looks heavy at the bottom, like a broom, which some people like that. Great Lengths, because it's so much hair, you have to really know how to actually cut it, because if you don't, it won't look right. Bellamy is beautiful hair. It's still pricey, but it's not as expensive as Great Lengths. But they do have some type of coating on their hair that makes the hair feel really nice. And when you curl it, it stays. This is day 3 of curling my Bellamy tape-ins, and it stays, which I think might have something to do with the coating. But
okay,
yeah.
And do most brands carry all 4 different types?
That's a great question.
Okay.
No, they don't. So Great Lengths, they only do fusion and tape-ins. They were just primarily fusion, but because of the need to have something a little more temporary for some people, they came up with some tapes, and their tapes are much smaller than Bellamy is what I have. But their tapes will only last you 4 weeks, even if your hair grows really slow. So the Bellamy tape-ins are much bigger, and you can get a little more wear time out of them.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
We've been on the line here for a while, so I'm going to say let's wrap this one up.
Okay.
We could talk for a long time.
Okay.
There's so many different aspects to these bad boys.
Yeah.
So, and Ashley, tell us where we can find your work and where people would go to book with you.
Sure. You can go to my website, which is, my business name is Marcel Ash Hair Extensions. So it's www.marcel, MARCEL, Ash, ASH, hair.com. I took out the extensions because it would have made a very long website. Yeah. So yeah.
So that's where people book with you?
Yeah, there's a link where you can email me, or you could just call my business cell phone. Because hair extensions take long periods of time, it's hard for clients to book consultations online. So so I have them go directly through me. So
are you on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook?
I'm on Instagram.
All right.
So also Marcel Ash Hair, where you can see some pictures of my work. I am on Google as well, so you can read reviews of my work as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to have all sorts of short clips and videos on our YouTube channel to show more of Ashley's work, because this is like an interesting topic to have an audio podcast on, because you kind of need to like see things. Anyway, we're going to have some fun little short videos on Ashley in her salon space.
Woohoo.
So
thank you.
Stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe or follow. And please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Lastly, follow us on social media for clips of past and future episodes. All our accounts are listed in the show notes below. Thanks so much for listening.